The blizzard hit Nevada harder than anyone expected that January night in 1879, and Zelda Dawson stumbled through the whiteout with frozen fingers and no idea if she would survive the next hour. Behind her, somewhere in that howling darkness, were the men her stepfather had sold her to for $300 and a bottle of whiskey. She would rather die in the snow than let them drag her back to whatever hell they had planned. Her thin cotton dress, meant for indoor wear, offered no protection against the wind that cut through to her bones. She had fled without a coat, without proper boots, with nothing but the desperate need to escape. The saloon where the transaction was supposed to happen sat 2 miles behind her now, and she had no destination in mind except away. Her dark hair, once pinned up carefully, now whipped around her face in frozen strands. At 20 years old, she had thought she understood cruelty, having lived with her stepfather since her mother died 3 years ago. But selling her like livestock to those rough traders heading to California was beyond anything she had imagined he would do. The snow came down so thick she could barely see her own hands. Her feet, clad only in worn leather shoes, had gone numb a while ago. She did not know how long she had been walking. Time seemed to stretch and compress in the white chaos. Every breath burned her lungs with cold. Every step took more effort than the last. She pushed forward because stopping meant death, and she had not fought this hard just to give up now. Zelda thought she heard voices behind her once, shouts that might have been men calling or might have been the wind playing tricks. She changed direction, veering east or what she thought was east. The world had become nothing but white and cold and the pounding of her own heart. Her mind started playing tricks too, showing her images of her mother's face, her childhood home before her father died, warm fires and hot meals and safety that felt like a dream from another lifetime. She did not see the fence until she walked straight into it. The impact sent her stumbling backward, and she grabbed at the wooden rails with numb fingers. A fence meant property, and property meant people, and people might mean help or they might mean danger. She had no way of knowing which, but she could not keep walking aimlessly through the storm. She followed the fence line, hand over hand, letting it guide her because she had no other guide left. The barn appeared out of the snow like a miracle. She almost walked past it, but the darker shadow against the white caught her attention. With the last of her strength, she pushed toward it, found the door, and shoved it open. The interior was dark and smelled of hay and horses, but it was out of the wind. She stumbled inside and collapsed onto the straw-covered floor. Warmth was relative. The barn was not warm, but compared to outside, it felt like heaven. Zelda pulled herself behind a stack of hay bales, trying to make herself small and hidden. If this property belonged to someone who knew her stepfather, they might send her back. If it belonged to someone who did not care about a strange woman in their barn, they might throw her out into the storm. She curled into a ball, pulled hay over herself for whatever insulation it might provide, and tried to stop shaking long enough to think. She could not think. Her mind felt as frozen as her body. She closed her eyes and prayed for the first time in years, though she was not sure what she was praying for anymore. Survival, safety, a chance to start over somewhere far from here. The prayers jumbled together as consciousness started to slip away from her. Benjamin Fletcher was not supposed to be checking the barn at midnight in a blizzard, but his best mare was due to foal any day now, and he worried about her in weather like this. He pulled his heavy coat tighter and pushed through the snow from his small ranch house to the barn, lantern held high against the wind. The 40-acre spread was not much, but it was his, bought with money saved from years of working cattle drives and ranch jobs across 3 states. At 28, he had finally put down roots in Belmont, Nevada, and he was not about to lose livestock to a late-season storm because he was too lazy to check on them. The barn door was not latched properly. Ben frowned and pulled it open, stepping inside quickly and shutting it behind him. Had he forgotten to latch it earlier? He was usually more careful than that. He hung the lantern on its hook and looked around. The horses were restless, shifting in their stalls. The mare who concerned him looked fine, just uncomfortable. He was about to turn back when he saw it. A footprint in the loose hay. Small. Definitely not his. Ben's hand went to the pistol at his hip automatically. Drifters sometimes sought shelter in barns during storms, and most were harmless, but a man learned to be careful. He moved quietly toward the back of the barn, following the disturbed hay. Behind the stacked bales, he found her. For a moment he just stared. A young woman lay curled in the hay pulled over her like a blanket, her lips blue and her face pale as death. She wore only a thin dress that was completely inadequate for the weather. No coat, no proper shoes. She was either unconscious or asleep, and from the blue tinge to her skin, she was dangerously cold. Ben holstered his gun and knelt beside her, touching her throat to check for a pulse. It was there, faint but steady. Her skin was like ice. He needed to get her warm immediately. He pulled off his heavy coat and wrapped it around her, then scooped her up in his arms. She was light, too light, and did not stir when he lifted her. The trip back to the house was harder carrying her, but he managed, pushing through the snow with his precious burden. Once inside, he kicked the door shut and carried her directly to the fireplace. The fire had burned down to embers, and he laid her carefully on the rug before building it back up quickly. Flames caught and spread, sending warmth into the small main room of his house. He needed to get her out of the wet dress and into something dry, but propriety warred with necessity. Necessity won. Ben grabbed blankets from his bedroom and returned to find her starting to shiver, which he knew was actually a good sign. Her body was trying to warm itself. He worked quickly and clinically, removing the soaked dress and her wet undergarments, trying not to think about the impropriety and focusing only on saving her life. Bruises marked her arms, dark purple and green. Old bruises, not from tonight. Once she was wrapped in dry blankets, he carried her to his bed and piled more blankets on top of her. He heated water on the stove and filled a hot water bottle, placing it near her feet. Then he pulled a chair up beside the bed and watched her, making sure she kept breathing. Who was she? Where had she come from? And what had she been running from to be out in a blizzard in a dress with no coat? Zelda woke slowly, confused by warmth and softness. For a moment she thought she had died and this was whatever came after. Then pain registered. Her feet burned and ached. Her hands throbbed. Her throat felt raw. She opened her eyes to find herself in a bed she did not recognize, in a room she had never seen, buried under heavy blankets. Panic hit her, and she sat up fast, clutching the blankets to her chest. The room was small but clean, furnished simply with a bed, a dresser, a chair. Weak daylight came through a window showing falling snow outside. A man sat in the chair beside the bed, watching her with dark eyes under dark hair. He was perhaps late 20s, tall and lean with the weathered look of someone who worked outdoors. He wore simple ranch clothes and held himself very still, as if trying not to spook her. "Easy," he said quietly. "You are safe. I found you in my barn last night half frozen to death." Zelda stared at him, trying to piece together memory and present. The blizzard, the escape, the barn. "Where am I? My ranch, about 5 miles outside Belmont. Name is Benjamin Fletcher. Most folks call me Ben." He paused. "What is your name?" She hesitated. If he knew her stepfather, giving her real name could be dangerous, but something in his eyes seemed genuine, concerned rather than threatening. "Zelda. Zelda Dawson." Recognition did not flash across his face, which she took as a good sign. "Well, Miss Dawson, you want to tell me what you were doing out in a blizzard in just a dress?" The whole story threatened to pour out, but caution held her back. "I was running from some men. Bad men. I could not stay where I was." Ben nodded slowly. "Those bruises on your arms did not come from the cold." Zelda looked down, pulling the blankets higher even though they already covered her completely. Then a horrible thought struck her. "My clothes. Where are my clothes? I had to get you out of them. They were soaking wet and you were freezing to death. I did not." He cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "I did not look more than necessary. Your dress is hanging by the fire, should be dry by now. I do not have any women's clothes here, but I can get you some of my things to wear until you figure out what you want to do." The fact that he looked embarrassed rather than leering helped settle some of her panic. Zelda studied him more carefully. He had an honest face, strong features, the kind of hands that knew hard work. "Thank you for helping me, for not leaving me in the barn." "Could not very well do that." Ben stood up from the chair. "I will get you those clothes and some breakfast. Storm is still going strong outside. You are stuck here until it clears. I am afraid." After he left the room, Zelda let out a shaky breath. Stuck in a strange man's house was not ideal, but it was infinitely better than being dragged to California by those traitors. She needed to think, to plan. Even after the storm cleared, she could not go back to Belmont. Her stepfather would be looking for her, and when those traitors realized she had run, they would want their money back. She had made herself a problem for dangerous men, and problems like that did not just disappear. Ben returned with a stack of clothes and set them on the bed. "These will be big on you, but they are warm and dry. I will be in the kitchen when you are ready." She waited until he closed the door, then dressed quickly in the oversized shirt and pants. She had to roll up the cuffs and tie the pants tight with a belt, but he was right. They were warm. Her own dress hung near the fireplace in the main room, and she could see Ben moving around in the small kitchen area. The house was basically one large room with the kitchen at one end, the fireplace and sitting area in the middle, and the bedroom she had been in separated by a partition wall. Simple but clean and well maintained. "Sit," Ben said, gesturing to the table. "Food will help." Zelda sat and watched him dish up eggs and bacon and bread. When he set the plate in front of her, her stomach reminded her that she had not eaten since yesterday afternoon. She tried to eat slowly, with manners, but hunger made her faster than was ladylike. Ben ate his own breakfast and did not comment on her appetite. "Storm should clear by tomorrow, weather willing. You have people I should send word to, anyone who will be worried." "No." The word came out flat. "No one." He looked at her over his coffee cup. "Those men you were running from. They likely to come looking." "I do not know. Maybe." Zelda set down her fork. "My stepfather sold me to some traders for $300. They were supposed to take me to California with them. I ran instead." Ben's expression darkened. "Sold you? He is not a good man. He never has been." "But I thought—" She swallowed hard. "I thought he would at least keep me around as free labor. I did not think he would actually sell me." "What about the law?" Zelda laughed bitterly. "The sheriff in Belmont plays cards with my stepfather every Saturday night. Who do you think he would believe?" Ben was quiet for a moment, thinking. What do you want to do? No one had asked her that in 3 years. What did she want? "I want to leave, go somewhere he cannot find me, somewhere I can work and make my own living." She met his eyes. "I can work. I am good with cooking, cleaning, sewing. I can learn other things, I just need a chance. The traders. They see your face clearly. It was dark in the saloon and I kept my head down, but they would recognize me if they saw me again, I think." She paused. "Why?" "Because if they are still in Belmont when the storm clears, they will be looking. And if your stepfather wants his money, he will help them look." Ben stood and paced to the window, looking out at the snow. Belmont is not that big. You cannot hide there. I know. That is why I need to leave. He turned back to her. Nearest town of any size is Austin, about 20 miles north, or you could head to Eureka. Both have more people, more opportunities. Easier to disappear. Zelda's heart sank. 20 miles might as well be 100. She had no money, no horse, no supplies. She had nothing but the dress drying by the fire and borrowed clothes. I appreciate the information. Ben heard the defeat in her voice. He studied her for a long moment, clearly wrestling with something. Finally, he said, I could take you, once the storm clears. I have business in Austin anyway. It was a lie, but a kind one. Give you a chance to get settled somewhere safe. Hope flickered in her chest, dangerous and fragile. Why would you do that? You do not know me. Because nobody should be sold like property, and because, he shrugged, because it is the right thing to do. The storm kept them trapped for a day and a half. At first, the confinement was awkward. They were strangers forced into close quarters with nothing to do but talk or sit in uncomfortable silence. But Ben proved to be surprisingly easy company. He did not press her for details she did not want to share, and he kept himself busy with small tasks around the house. Zelda made herself useful, insisting on cooking and cleaning to earn her keep. Ben protested at first, but she needed to feel like she was contributing, not just taking charity. She made dinner that first full day, surprised to find his pantry well stocked. The stew she made was nothing fancy, but it was hot and filling. You were not lying about being able to cook, Ben said, soaking up the last of the stew with bread. My mother taught me. Before she died, she ran a boarding house. I grew up cooking for a dozen people at a time. Zelda collected the plates. What about you? How did you end up ranching in Nevada? Long road. Ben leaned back in his chair. Grew up in Kansas, family farmed wheat. I did not take to farming, so I headed west when I was 18. Worked cattle drives for a few years, then ranch hand jobs in Wyoming and Colorado. Saved my money. When I heard about opportunities in Nevada, I came down and bought this place about 2 years ago. Do you like it? Ranching. I do. It is hard work, but it is mine. Nobody tells me what to do or when to do it. I answer to myself. He smiled slightly. Gets lonely sometimes, but the freedom is worth it. Loneliness was something Zelda understood. She had been lonely for 3 years, living with a man who saw her as nothing but an inconvenience. What do you ranch? Besides horses, cattle mostly. I have a small herd, about 60 head. Not much compared to the big operations, but enough to make a living. I do some horse trading too. That mare in the barn, if she has a healthy foal, I can sell it for good money. They talked into the evening, carefully at first, then more easily as comfort grew. Ben told her about his years on cattle drives, the places he had seen, the characters he had met. Zelda found herself laughing at his stories, something she had not done in far too long. She shared memories of her mother, carefully avoiding anything about her stepfather. When the conversation finally wound down, Ben set up a bedroll by the fire and insisted Zelda take the bed. She protested, but he would not hear otherwise. As she lay in the dark, listening to the wind howl outside and the fire crackle, she felt something unfamiliar. Not quite peace, but close. A sense that maybe, just maybe, things could be all right. The second day brought more conversation. They talked about books they had read, places they wanted to see, dreams they had for the future. Zelda admitted she had always wanted to see the ocean. Ben said he had seen it once in California and described the endless blue water, the sound of waves, the taste of salt in the air. She listened with hungry attention, storing every detail away like treasure. What would you do if you could do anything? Ben asked as afternoon light filtered weakly through the window. The storm had lessened, but snow still fell. Zelda thought about it. I would have a shop, I think. A dressmaking shop. My mother taught me to sew, and I am good at it. I used to imagine having my own place, making beautiful dresses for women, being my own boss. She smiled sadly. Foolish dream. Why foolish? Because it takes money to start a business. Money I do not have and will never have. Ben was quiet for a moment. Austin has a dressmaker, but she is old and her eyes are going. Last time I was there, I heard her complaining about it. Maybe she would take on help or an apprentice. The hope that flickered to life was almost painful. Do you really think so? Cannot hurt to ask. That night, Zelda lay awake thinking about possibilities. A job, a real job where she earned her own money and built her own life. It seemed too good to be true. But Ben had no reason to lie to her, no reason to give her false hope. She thought about him too. The way he had helped her without asking for anything in return. The easy way he talked to her like she was a person worth talking to, not just a burden or a piece of property. She had known him less than 2 days, but something about Ben Fletcher made her feel safe in a way she had not felt in years. The storm cleared on the 3rd morning. Zelda woke to sunlight and silence. The wind had stopped howling. When she came out of the bedroom, Ben was already up, looking out the window. Cleared overnight, he said. We can head out this afternoon if you want. Give the roads a chance to settle some. Reality crashed back in. Of course. He was taking her to Austin to start over somewhere else. She would leave and probably never see him again. The thought brought unexpected sadness. This afternoon sounds good. Ben turned to face her. You do not have to go if you are not ready. You can stay here a few more days until you feel stronger. No, I should go. The longer I stay in the area, the more dangerous it is. Zelda forced a smile. Besides, you have been generous enough already. I should not impose any longer. Something flickered in Ben's expression, there and gone too quickly to read. It has not been an imposition. They spent the morning preparing for the trip. Ben hitched up his wagon and loaded supplies. Zelda carefully folded her now dry dress and changed back into it, even though Ben's clothes were warmer. She needed to look presentable when they reached Austin, not like a woman wearing men's clothes. Over the dress she wore Ben's coat, which he insisted she keep. I have others, he said when she protested. You need it more than I do. The ride to Austin took most of the afternoon. The roads were difficult with snow and the wagon moved slowly. They passed through Belmont and Zelda ducked down, heart racing, though she saw no one she recognized on the quiet streets. Once past the town, she breathed easier. You all right? Ben asked. Yes, just nervous. She looked at him. Thank you for this, truly. I do not know how I can ever repay you. Do not need repayment. Just want to see you safe. Austin was bigger than Belmont, a proper mining town with multiple streets and businesses. Ben drove the wagon down the main street and stopped in front of a building with a sign reading, Mrs. Harriet Sullivan, dressmaker. He hopped down and came around to help Zelda down from the wagon. Want me to come in with you? He asked. Zelda wanted to say yes, but this was something she needed to do herself. No, but thank you. The dress shop was small but charming, full of bolts of fabric and half-finished garments. An older woman with gray hair and spectacles looked up from her sewing when Zelda entered. Help you, dear, Mrs. Sullivan. My name is Zelda Dawson. I am looking for work. I can sew and I am good at it. I heard you might need help. Mrs. Sullivan studied her over her spectacles. Did you now? And where did you hear that? A friend mentioned it. Can you really sew, or do you just think you can? Zelda lifted her chin. Give me a test, any test, I will prove it. The older woman smiled slightly. I like confidence, let us see your hands. Zelda held out her hands. They were still healing from the frostbite, but they were steady and strong. Mrs. Sullivan nodded. Fine hands for sewing. Tell me, where are you from? Originally from Kansas. I have been in Nevada for a few years. The lie came easily. She could not risk saying Belmont. "And why are you looking for work? My mother passed away. I need to support myself." The older woman's expression softened. "I am sorry for your loss, dear. As it happens, my eyes are not what they used to be, and business has been good lately. Too good. I am turning away customers because I cannot keep up. I could use someone with real skill." She gestured to a scrap of fabric and some thread on the table. "Show me a basic hem stitch." Zelda picked up the needle and thread and went to work. Her fingers were still slightly stiff from the cold, but the motion was automatic, learned young and practiced 1,000 times. She created a neat, even hem in minutes. Mrs. Sullivan examined it closely, then nodded. "That is fine work. Very fine. I can offer you room and board and a small wage to start. If you work out, we can discuss better terms in a few months. Does that suit you?" Relief and joy flooded through Zelda so strongly she thought she might cry. "Yes, yes, that suits me perfectly. Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Thank you so much." "Call me Harriet. When can you start?" "Right now, if you want," Harriet laughed. "Tomorrow is fine. The room upstairs is small but clean. Let me show you." The room above the shop was indeed small, barely big enough for a narrow bed, a dresser, and a chair. But it had a window with a view of the street, and it was hers. Her own room, her own space, her own life starting fresh. When Zelda came back downstairs, she found Ben waiting in the shop, talking quietly with Harriet. He looked up when she appeared, and the relief on his face mirrored her own. "She took me on," Zelda said, unable to keep the smile from her face. "I have a job and a room." "That is wonderful." Ben's smile was genuine and warm. "I am glad it worked out." Harriet looked between them with knowing eyes. "Your friend here was just telling me he is from the Belmont area." "Small world." "Yes," Zelda said carefully. "Small world." There was an awkward moment where neither Zelda nor Ben seemed to know what to say. Finally, Ben cleared his throat. "I should get back, livestock to tend to, of course." Zelda walked him out to the wagon. The afternoon sun was starting to dip toward the horizon, painting the snow golden. "Ben, I do not know how to thank you properly. You saved my life. You would have done the same." "I hope so. I like to think I would." She looked up at him, this man who had shown her nothing but kindness when he owed her nothing. "Will I see you again?" The question hung in the air between them. Ben studied her face for a long moment. "I come to Austin sometimes. For supplies. Maybe I will stop by, see how you are settling in." "I would like that." He climbed up onto the wagon seat, then looked down at her. "Zelda, if those men come looking, if anyone comes asking questions, you send word. I am about 5 miles southwest of Belmont. Anyone can give directions to the Fletcher Ranch." "I will, thank you." She stood on the street and watched until the wagon disappeared around a corner. Then she went back inside to start her new life. The first week in Austin passed in a blur of work and adjustment. Harriet proved to be a fair but exacting employer. She expected quality work, and she had strong opinions about techniques and methods. But she was also willing to teach, and Zelda soaked up every lesson. Within days, Harriet was trusting her with more complex projects. "You have a real talent for this," Harriet said one afternoon as Zelda finished stitching tiny seed pearls onto a wedding dress bodice. "Where did you learn such delicate work?" "My mother. She was very skilled. She taught you well." The room above the shop became home faster than Zelda expected. She bought a few personal items with her first small wages, little things to make the space her own. A small mirror, a hairbrush, a book of poetry from the general store. Each purchase felt like a declaration of independence. She thought about Ben often, more often than she probably should. Twice she caught herself looking out the window at passing wagons, hoping to see his. She told herself she was being foolish. He had been kind, yes, but that did not mean anything beyond simple human decency. He had his own life, his own ranch, his own concerns. She was just a woman he had helped once, still, she hoped. 3 weeks after she arrived in Austin, a man came into the shop. He was rough-looking, with hard eyes and trail dust on his clothes. Zelda was alone in the shop while Harriet delivered an order. "Help you?" Zelda asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Looking for a woman. About your age, dark hair. Ran off from her family down in Belmont. Wondered if you seen anyone like that." Zelda's blood ran cold, but she kept her expression neutral. "Lots of dark-haired women around. What is her name?" "Zelda Dawson. Sorry, do not know anyone by that name." She met his eyes directly, projecting calm she did not feel. "You might try asking at the hotel. They see more strangers than I do." The man studied her for a long moment, and Zelda felt like he could see right through her lie. But finally he nodded. "Appreciate it." After he left, Zelda sank into a chair, shaking. They were looking for her. She had known they might, but facing it was different than imagining it. She needed to tell Ben, but she had no way to reach him. She did not even know if he would come back to Austin. That night, she barely slept, jumping at every sound. When morning came, she told Harriet she needed to send a message to a friend. Harriet gave her a knowing look but did not ask questions, just directed her to a boy who ran errands for spare change. Zelda wrote a careful note. "Someone came asking questions. Used my real name. Zelda." She included Harriet's name and address and gave the boy directions to the Fletcher ranch along with a coin. Then she waited. Ben received the note 2 days later. He had been thinking about Zelda constantly since he had left her in Austin, finding excuses to delay the trip back into town. He told himself he was being ridiculous, that she was settling into her new life and did not need him showing up like a lovesick fool. But the note changed everything. He rode into Austin the next morning, his horse moving fast despite the still snowy roads. The thought of those men coming after Zelda made his blood boil. She had been through enough. She deserved peace and safety, and he would make sure she got it. Zelda was working in the dress shop when he arrived. She looked up at the sound of the door, and her whole face lit up in a way that made Ben's heart do strange things in his chest. "Ben, you came." "Of course I came. Tell me what happened." She told him about the man who had come asking questions, how he had used her real name. Ben listened with growing concern. "Did he seem convinced when you said you did not know her?" "I think so, but if he keeps asking around, someone might put it together." "I cannot change my first name. Too many people already know it here." Ben thought for a moment. "Dawson is not exactly an uncommon name. If anyone asks, you can say you are from Kansas originally, which is true. Just leave out the Belmont part. I have been. But Ben, what if they keep looking? Then I will deal with them." The fierce protectiveness in his voice surprised them both. Zelda stared at him. "You would do that? Why?" "Because." Ben struggled for words. "Because I care what happens to you, more than I probably should, considering we barely know each other. But I do." The confession hung between them. Zelda's eyes were wide, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then she said quietly, "I care what happens to you too. I have been watching for your wagon every day." Ben smiled. "Have you?" "Yes. I told myself I was being silly, that you had your own life and would not come back, but I hoped you would. I was trying to give you space, let you settle in. But I have been thinking about you constantly." He took a step closer. "Zelda, I know the timing is complicated and you have been through too much, but I need you to know, I have not been able to get you out of my mind since I found you in my barn." Zelda's breath caught. "I feel the same way. I thought maybe it was just because you saved my life, that I was confusing gratitude with something else. But it is more than that. What do we do about it? I do not know. I need this job. I need to build something of my own. I cannot just run off and be dependent on someone else again, even you. I know. I would never ask you to give up your independence. You fought too hard for it. Ben took her hand carefully. But maybe we could see each other. I could come to Austin regularly. We could get to know each other properly. I would like that. I would like that very much. The sound of someone clearing their throat made them both jump. Harriet stood in the doorway from the back room trying to hide a smile. Sorry to interrupt, but I do have a business to run here. Zelda blushed scarlet. Harriet, this is Ben Fletcher. Ben, this is my employer, Harriet Sullivan. We met briefly, Ben said, releasing Zelda's hand. Mrs. Sullivan, Mr. Fletcher, I assume you are the friend who recommended my shop. Yes, madam. Well, I am grateful for the recommendation. Zelda is the best help I have had in years. Harriet looked between them. I suppose you will be visiting Austin more frequently now, if that is all right. More than all right. Just try not to distract my assistant too much during working hours. But Harriet's eyes were kind, and when Zelda looked at her, the older woman winked. Ben visited Austin twice a week after that. He always had some excuse, supplies to buy or business to conduct, but they both knew the real reason. He and Zelda would walk together through the town, talking for hours. They discovered shared opinions on books, different but complementary views on politics, and a mutual love of practical jokes that neither had indulged in for years. Slowly, carefully, they built something real between them. Ben told her about his dreams for his ranch, how he wanted to expand his herd, maybe build a bigger house someday. Zelda told him about her work, the satisfaction of creating beautiful things with her hands, the joy of earning her own money. Mrs. Sullivan says if I keep improving, she might make me a partner in a year or two, Zelda said one afternoon as they sat on a bench outside the general store. It was early March and the worst of winter had passed. Can you imagine? Me, a business owner? I can imagine it easily. You are talented and hardworking. You deserve every success. Zelda leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture that had become natural between them. I never thought I could have this. A job I love, a life I chose. You, Ben kissed the top of her head. You have me if you want me. I do want you. But Ben, I am not ready to leave Austin, not yet. I need to see this through, build something real here. I know. I am not asking you to leave. What are we doing then? You live an hour away. We can only see each other twice a week. Is that enough? It was a fair question. Ben had been wrestling with it himself. For now, it has to be, but Zelda, I am in this for the long term. However long it takes, whatever we need to do to make it work, I am not going anywhere. She lifted her head to look at him. You really mean that? I really do. Then kiss me properly, Ben Fletcher. He did, right there on the main street of Austin with people walking by. It was their first real kiss and it was worth the wait. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. Worth noting, Zelda said breathlessly, that was very improper behavior. Are you complaining? Absolutely not. Spring came to Nevada slowly that year. The snows melted gradually, revealing the brown earth beneath. Ben's mare had her foal, a strong colt that he sold for a good price. His cattle came through the winter well, and he was able to add a few more head to his herd. The ranch was prospering, and so was he. But he hated being away from Zelda. The twice-weekly visits were not enough. He wanted to wake up next to her every morning and fall asleep beside her every night. He wanted to share his daily life with her, the small moments that could not be captured in limited visits. By May, he had a plan. It was risky, but he thought it might work. He presented it to Zelda on a warm afternoon when they had ridden out beyond town for a picnic. They sat on a blanket overlooking a valley, eating bread and cheese and enjoying the spring weather. I have been thinking, Ben said carefully, about us and how to make this work better. I have been thinking about that too. Hear me out before you say no. What if you expanded? Opened a second shop location. Zelda blinked. A second location. Belmont is growing. More people moving in for the mines. Right now, anyone who wants serious dressmaking has to come to Austin. But what if there was a shop in Belmont? You and Mrs. Sullivan could split the work. You could be there a few days a week, her in Austin the rest of the time. Ben, that would cost money, a lot of money. I know, and I have some saved. I could invest in the business. Zelda sat up straighter. No, absolutely not. I am not taking your money. It would not be taking. It would be investing. A proper business arrangement. You and Mrs. Sullivan would own the majority. I would just be a silent partner with a small stake. He took her hand. Think about it. You could keep your independence, keep building your business, but you would be closer. We could see each other more. What about my stepfather? What about the traders? I asked around carefully. The traders left months ago. They are long gone, and your stepfather. Ben's expression hardened. He drinks more than he gambles now. From what I hear, he is too busy trying to keep a roof over his head to worry about you. Zelda wanted to say yes so badly it hurt, but practical concerns held her back. I would need to talk to Harriet. It would be her decision as much as mine. Of course, just think about it. To Zelda's surprise, Harriet loved the idea. I have been thinking about expanding, the older woman admitted when Zelda broached the subject. My sister lives in Belmont. I could stay with her when I am there. And you are right, there is a market for quality dressmaking. The timing might be perfect. They spent the next 2 months planning. Ben found a suitable building in Belmont, a small storefront on the main street. Harriet and Zelda split the time between Austin and Belmont, setting up the new location while maintaining the Austin shop. It was exhausting work, but exciting too. The grand opening of Sullivan Dressmakers' Belmont location was in July. The town turned out in surprising numbers, curious about the new business. Zelda felt nervous, worried someone might recognize her from before. But she had changed in the months since she had fled. She carried herself differently, with confidence instead of fear. She wore well-made clothes and styled her hair fashionably. She was not the same cowering girl her stepfather had sold. To her relief, no one seemed to recognize her. Or if they did, they said nothing. With Zelda in Belmont 3 days a week, she and Ben could see each other almost daily. He would stop by the shop in the evenings after his ranch work was done. They would walk together or sit on the bench outside the shop, or sometimes he would take her back to his ranch for dinner. Being at the ranch felt different now. It was not just the place where he had saved her life. It was becoming familiar, comfortable. She learned the rhythms of his work, helped him with small tasks, laughed at the antics of his horses. The small house started to feel like home in a way no place had felt since her mother died. One evening in late August, as the sun set in brilliant oranges and purples, Ben and Zelda sat on his porch watching the colors fade. "I love it here," Zelda said quietly. "Your ranch, the peace of it, the way the land stretches out forever." "It is a good place," Ben agreed. "Better with you here. I never thought I could feel this way, so content, so happy." Ben turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Zelda, we have been seeing each other for 6 months now. I know we have not known each other that long in the grand scheme of things. But I know my own heart. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Zelda's breath caught. "Ben, I am not asking you to give up your work or your independence. We would be partners in everything. Your business would still be yours. You could keep working as much as you want. But I want you to be my wife. I want to wake up next to you every morning and build a life together. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Zelda's cheeks, but she was smiling. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." Ben whooped and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around. When he set her down, they were both laughing and crying at the same time. "I do not have a ring yet," Ben said. "I wanted to ask first, make sure you said yes before I spent the money." "I do not need a fancy ring, I just need you. You are getting a ring anyway, a proper one." They were married in September, a small ceremony in Austin with Harriet and a few friends as witnesses. Zelda wore a dress she made herself, simple but elegant in cream-colored silk. Ben wore his best suit and looked so handsome it made her heart ache. When they exchanged vows, promising to love and honor each other, Zelda felt like her life had finally, truly become her own. The ranch became their home, though Zelda continued to work at both dress shop locations. She and Harriet had worked out a good system, each covering different days and locations. The business was thriving, and Harriet had officially made Zelda a full partner. Everything Zelda had dreamed of building was coming true. Marriage to Ben was easier and happier than she had imagined. They fell into comfortable rhythms, learning each other's habits and quirks. Ben was patient and kind, never demanding, always considerate. They laughed together constantly, finding joy in small things. He supported her work completely, never suggesting she should stay home or give up her business. One afternoon in November, about 2 months after their wedding, Zelda was working in the Belmont shop when her stepfather walked in. She froze, scissors in hand, heart hammering. He looked older, more worn down than she remembered. His clothes were shabby and his face was flushed with broken blood vessels from drinking. He did not recognize her immediately. "Need to get a shirt mended," he said gruffly. Zelda found her voice. "We do alterations. You can leave it and pick it up in 2 days." He squinted at her and she saw the moment recognition hit. His expression shifted from confusion to shock to something ugly. "Zelda," she straightened her spine, refusing to cower. "That is Mrs. Fletcher now. What the hell are you doing here? Those traitors have been looking for you." "I owe them money because you ran off." "That is not my problem. You sold me like I was property. You had no right." "I am your stepfather. I had every right." "You had no rights at all, and now you have even less. I suggest you leave my shop before I call the sheriff." He stepped closer and Zelda gripped the scissors tighter, ready to defend herself if needed. But before he could say anything else, the door opened and Ben walked in. He took in the scene instantly, his expression turning hard. "There a problem here, Zelda?" This man was just leaving. Ben moved to stand between Zelda and her stepfather. He was taller and broader, and there was something dangerous in his stance. "You heard my wife. Time to go." The stepfather looked between them, calculating. Whatever he saw in Ben's face made him back down. "This is not over." "Yes, it is," Ben said quietly. "You come near my wife again, you even speak to her, and you will answer to me. We clear." The stepfather spat on the floor and left, slamming the door behind him. Zelda was shaking. Ben turned and pulled her into his arms. "You are safe. I have got you." "I thought I was past being afraid of him. Fear like that does not just disappear, but he cannot hurt you anymore. I will make sure of it." They stood there for a long moment, Zelda drawing strength from Ben's steady presence. Finally, she pulled back and looked up at him. "Thank you for being here, for always being here." "Where else would I be?" The incident with her stepfather shook Zelda more than she wanted to admit. For days afterward, she jumped at shadows and checked over her shoulder constantly. Ben stayed close, making sure she was never alone when the shop was open. He also quietly spread word around town that anyone bothering Mrs. Fletcher would answer to him. It was enough. Her stepfather stayed away. By December, Zelda's fear had faded back to manageable levels. Life settled into its new normal. The dress shops were both doing well, even with winter slowing business slightly. The ranch was prepared for the cold months ahead, and Zelda realized she had missed her monthly courses twice in a row. She told Ben on a snowy evening, the first real snow of the season falling outside. They sat by the fire, comfortable and warm, when she gathered her courage. "Ben, I need to tell you something." He looked up from the book he was reading. "What is it?" "I think I am pregnant." His expression went through several rapid changes: shock, joy, wonder, concern. "You think? You are not sure?" "Pretty sure. I have missed 2 months and I have been feeling strange in the mornings, tired and a little sick." Ben set down his book and moved to kneel in front of her chair, taking her hands. "How do you feel about it?" "Scared," Zelda admitted. "But happy too, I think. Is it too soon? We have only been married a few months. There is no too soon or too late. If you are pregnant, then we will have a baby and we will figure it out together." He searched her face. "Are you happy?" "Yes." "Scared, but yes, happy." "Then I am happy too." He kissed her gently and Zelda felt some of her fear ease. They would figure it out together. They always did. The doctor confirmed it a week later. Zelda was about 3 months along, which meant the baby would come in early summer. They told Harriet, who was delighted and immediately started planning how to manage the shops around Zelda's pregnancy. They told their few close friends, who offered congratulations and advice. Winter passed slowly. Zelda worked as much as she could, knowing she would need to cut back later. Ben fussed over her, making sure she ate enough and did not overexert herself. She found his concern endearing, even when it was a bit much. By March, her belly was showing clearly. By April, she could feel the baby moving, strange flutters that became kicks. Ben loved putting his hand on her stomach to feel the movement, his face full of wonder every time. "That is our baby," he would say, amazed. "Yes," Zelda would reply, her own wonder matching his. They prepared the small second bedroom in the ranch house as a nursery. Ben built a cradle with his own hands, carefully sanding it smooth. Zelda sewed tiny clothes, marveling at how small they were. They argued good-naturedly about names, finally settling on Nathan if it was a boy, Clara if it was a girl. In late June, on a hot afternoon when Zelda was sure she might melt from the heat, her water broke. Ben rode for the midwife, an experienced woman named Mrs. Granger who lived in Belmont. Harriet came too, having promised to be there for the birth. Labor was long and hard, lasting through the night and into the next day. Ben stayed with her the whole time, letting her grip his hand hard enough to leave bruises, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, murmuring encouragement when she thought she could not do it anymore. Finally, as dawn broke on a new day, their son was born. Nathan Benjamin Fletcher came into the world howling his displeasure at the bright light and cold air. Mrs. Granger cleaned him up and wrapped him in a soft blanket before placing him in Zelda's arms. Zelda looked down at her son, at his tiny perfect face and dark wisps of hair, and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. "Hello, Nathan," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." Ben, sitting beside her on the bed, looked at his wife and son with an expression of such pure love that Harriet, watching from the doorway, felt tears in her own eyes. "You did amazing," Ben said to Zelda, kissing her temple. "He is perfect. You are perfect." "We made a person," Zelda said, still marveling. "Look at him, Ben. We made him. We did." Nathan opened his eyes, dark blue like all newborns, and seemed to look right at his parents. Then he yawned, showing pink gums, and closed his eyes again. The first weeks with Nathan were exhausting and wonderful. Zelda took time away from the shops to recover and bond with her baby. Ben helped with everything, changing diapers and walking the floor with Nathan at night when he fussed. They were both tired all the time, but happy. By August, Zelda was ready to return to work part-time. They worked out a system where she would take Nathan with her to the shop sometimes, and other times Ben would watch him while doing ranch work that allowed him to stay close to the house. Harriet was delighted to have a baby around, and more than once Zelda returned from deliveries to find her business partner happily rocking Nathan and singing him songs. Life settled into a new rhythm, busier but full. Nathan grew and thrived, reaching milestones that Ben and Zelda celebrated with perhaps too much enthusiasm. His first smile, his first laugh, the first time he rolled over, every moment felt precious. One evening in October, when Nathan was nearly 4 months old, Ben and Zelda sat on the porch after putting him to bed. The autumn air was cool and pleasant, the sky full of stars. "You ever think about that night?" Ben asked. "When I found you in the barn?" "Sometimes. It feels like a lifetime ago now. You were so close to dying. If the storm had lasted longer, if I had not checked the barn, if I had left you there." Zelda took his hand. "But you did not. You saved me, Ben. In more ways than just that night, you gave me back my life. You did the same for me. I did not even realize how lonely I was until you were here." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Zelda said, "I love our life. This ranch, our family, the work we both do. It is everything I never knew I wanted. Me too. Though I would not mind adding to our family eventually. Nathan could use a sibling." Zelda laughed. "Give me at least a year to recover from having this one before we talk about the next." "Fair enough." They watched the stars come out one by one, and Zelda thought about how far she had come. From a woman with no choices, no future, running through a blizzard with nothing but desperate hope, to this. A home, a husband who loved her, a son, work that fulfilled her, and safety. Real, lasting safety. The years that followed brought growth and change, but always together. The ranch expanded as Ben added more cattle and horses. The dress shops continued to thrive, and eventually Zelda and Harriet opened a third location in Eureka. Nathan grew into a bright, curious child with his mother's dark hair and his father's steady nature. When Nathan was 3, Zelda became pregnant again. This time she was less scared, more confident. She knew what to expect, knew that she and Ben would handle whatever came. Their daughter, Clara Rose Fletcher, was born on a spring morning when wildflowers covered the hills around the ranch. She had Ben's dark eyes and Zelda's stubborn streak, evident from birth. Nathan was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything. Ben and Zelda watched their children grow, marveling at the family they had built. 2 more children followed over the years. Another son named Samuel, and finally a daughter they called Grace. The ranch house got bigger, with additions built to accommodate their growing family. The dress business eventually became successful enough that Zelda could hire additional seamstresses, allowing her to focus more on design and management while spending more time at home. Ben's cattle operation became one of the most respected in the area, known for quality stock and fair dealing. Through it all, Ben and Zelda remained each other's closest partner and best friend. They still took walks together in the evenings when they could, still talked for hours about everything and nothing. The passion between them never faded, but it deepened into something richer and more complex. A love built on trust, respect, shared history, and the knowledge that they had chosen each other and would keep choosing each other every day. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Ben surprised Zelda by taking her back to the barn where he had found her. It had been repaired and improved over the years, but it was still the same basic structure. "Why did you bring me here?" Zelda asked, though she thought she knew. "Because this is where our story started, where I found the most precious thing I would ever find in my life." Ben pulled her close. "I want you to see it now, not as a place you almost died, but as the place where we found each other." Zelda looked around the barn at the clean stalls and organized equipment, so different from that desperate night. But she could still remember the fear, the cold, the certain knowledge that she might not survive. And then the miracle of Ben finding her, saving her, giving her not just her life back but a life better than she had ever imagined. "I see it," she said softly. "I see what it really was, the beginning of everything good." They stood there together, in the barn where a desperate woman had collapsed in the hay and a kind cowboy had refused to leave her to die. Two people who might never have met under any other circumstances, brought together by a blizzard and chance, and perhaps something more than chance. "I love you," Ben said, as he had said countless times over the years. "I will always love you. I love you too. Always." They walked back to the house hand in hand as the sun set, ready to return to their children, their work, their life. A life that had started with a woman walking through a blizzard to escape being sold, and a cowboy who found her and kept her safe. But it had become so much more than that. It had become love, family, partnership, and a future they built together, one day at a time. Behind them, the barn stood quiet in the fading light, a silent witness to where it all began. And in the house ahead, lamplight glowed warm in the windows, welcoming them home. Home to the life they had made, the family they had raised, and the love that would carry them forward through whatever years remained, together always, as they had promised to be from that first moment when fate and fortune brought them together in the cold and the dark and the snow.